Hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this Saturday afternoon. I, Dr. Tarak Pujara, Head of Professional Education at Zeiss, will be moderating this session. Today, we have Dr. Chekitan Singh, who will be sharing his point of view of having a MEL 90 for his refractive practice. He did his DNB in ophthalmology at Shankar Netralaya. He has also done a super specialty fellowship on a vitreoretina from the same institute. In addition to this, he has also successfully completed his ICO and FRCS exams. During his DNP, he had an opportunity to work with Dr. Srinivas Rao, Dr. Prema Padmanabhan, and Dr. Rajesh Pogla, who are a very well-known cornea faculties across the India and internationally. And from this training, he has developed his interest into laser vision correction. He has presented many papers at international conferences and published good number of papers in a peer-reviewed journal. Before we go ahead with the program or this webinar, let me tell you the webinar rules for today. So all the attendees will set on a mute at the beginning. We will unmute you in case of a questions. And we request all of you to use the question window, which you will find on your panel to communicate with us, and we will ask the questions one by one at the end of the webinar. If you wish to ask a direct question, please raise hand panel or hand signal from your side panel. We'll unmute you to ask the questions at the end of a session, and you also have an opportunity to speak to our speaker directly, and at the same time you need to unmute yourself in order to speak. This session will be recorded. Now I'll pass it on to Dr. Chekitan Singh. Dr. Singh, webinar is all yours.
So kindly share your screen.
Yeah, are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. And it's a pleasure to share my views on why I have chosen MEL 90 for my refractive practice. So I am Dr. Chekitan, and presently into private practice since 2008, at Ishwar Eye Center, Rohtak. We have been into, my father is also an ophthalmologist, and we have been into practice for more than 35 years now. So no financial interests or conflict of interest with any company whatsoever. So before we've had a 25-year-old association with Zeiss. We've been using their machines, the different machines. It was the YAG machine which came in first, then followed by the laser machines, the angiography fundus cameras, the SD-OCT, which is doing service now since the past 10 years. Very crisp and very good machines, all of them, the green lasers, the Lumera microscope, and finally the MEL 90. So since we had such a long association, I did a little bit of a Google search as to why Zeiss is so good. So I came around with some data. It was founded in 1846 in Jena, Germany. So it's more than 150 years of excellence. And it has been a world leader in optics, in microscopes, fundus cameras, lenses, lasers, LASIKs, and even semiconductors. I was surprised to find out that information. One of the oldest existing optics manufacturers in the world, has a worldwide presence, and it's Zeiss. Word Zeiss for me stands for impeccable quality, value, and things which are built to last. My wish list for a refractive platform, an ideal refractive platform should have cutting edge technology, which should not only be cutting edge, but should be clinically relevant, should have the best optics in business. That is where Zeiss scores over all other machines, I think, which are available in the market today. It should be easy to use, should have an intuitive interface, which your OT assistant can manage for putting in the data, and during your machine maneuvers during LASIK or PRK, should have less recurring costs, like the cards and proprietary softwares where you have to pay the company every time you use. There are certain machines which still have those things attached to them. That is an unnecessary expenditure. Should not have that. It should be a sturdy machine and should not have constant breakdowns. And also it should be able to take on our weather, in which sometimes the air conditioning can go down, sometimes the humidity can go up. So all those things are very important. And lastly and most importantly, have excellent service backup. That particular company should be able to provide you service and parts at least for 10 years or more since you buy the machines, since they are very, very costly machines. So these are my lists which I kept in mind before we went ahead. So I compared it to its rivals which are there in the market, the Nidec, AMO, Bosch & Lomb, Teneo, Elcon EX500, Schwind, the various models. And I was really happy to find out that our machine, the Zeiss Smile 90, was a dual frequency laser, 500 Hertz, which is one of the fastest as of now. The per diopter correction of time of 1.3 seconds per diopter, as you can see, is one of the fastest available in the world right now. It has a very good eye tracker, which does an impeccable job in ensuring that, corrections are halted in case of movement or compensated for. It is a flying spot laser, and research has proven that flying spots lasers give you the most smooth corneas post-op. It has a Gaussian beam profile, which is really required to have a very targeted treatment. It has a sweet spot size of 0.67 millimeter, which which balances energy versus the spot size to give you good results. It has an option of topo-guided treatment if we wish to do so, like certain certain Alcon machines which have that, and it has been advertised a lot. But of course, I think it has less clinical value in terms of results, which we'll share with you very soon. It has a great addition to it, which is called as Press Beyond. That is for presbyopia correction. If you want to expand, the number of patients undergoing LASIK, then even the presbyopia age group can be catered to. And of course, it has a femtosecond link. It can be connected to a femtosecond laser, even by Zeiss. That is the Smile, if you wish to do that. So which are the features which I really admired? One was the FlexSequence function. I could use 250 Hertz for PRK and 500 Hertz for LASIK. We will have detailed discussion on that later. A very fast eye tracker that ensures I have accurate corrections. An advanced ablation algorithm, which also will come to later. This is the MEL 90, which is there. An ultra fast ablation speed, one of the fastest in the industry. A patented adaptive CCA, which stands for cone for a balanced environment of atmosphere when the laser is being done. So it has a patented CCA which removes the plume and it distributes it over the cornea in such a way by influx and outflux of air that the beam which is coming onto the cornea is absolutely homogenized and the atmosphere in that area remains perfect to achieve a good ablation. It gives you an edge of performing topo-guided and presbyopic LASIK. It is fast and hassle-free gas exchange, which also makes me happy. It only takes 10 minutes to warm up. There is no nitrogen generator. There is no other cylinder. There is no need to open any valves, nothing. It prepares itself in 10 to 15 minutes and is ready to go. And in the past 3 years, we have not had a single breakdown. We have never halted any treatment. All the treatments were successful. So never because of the machine has a treatment been halted or we had to cancel surgeries or postpone surgeries. That is a big tribute to Zeiss again. Cutting edge technology, which is clinically relevant to me, is to have the best kind of ablations with minimum consumption of tissue. You can see in this particular format, which shows you that around 13.3 microns per diopter for about moderate myopic ablations, you can see, which is quite less compared to the industry standard of around 15 microns per diopter. And as the your myopic corrections increase, say to high myopia, it is further less to 12.5 microns per diopter. So that is great again, for a machine to give you more residual tissue after you have treated. My preferred range of correction for myopia are 8 to 9 diopters, of course, depending on whether it has astigmatism with it or not. A hyperopia, although I have corrected myopia up to 11 diopters, but I would say 8 to 9 is a good safe parameter. Hyperopia also I have corrected up to 5 diopters, but I would say 3 to 4 diopters is again a good range. And astigmatism also I have corrected up to 5 diopters, but I think 3.5 to 4 diopters is also a good preference for me. Of course, a lot depends on the central corneal thickness as well. Coming to FlexiQuence, I think this is the only laser in the world which gives you options of having 2 frequencies. It is the only dual frequency laser. For standard LASIK, you need very good speed. So that is where you 500 Hertz comes into the picture, that avoids drying of the corneal surface and achieves a very good results. And also we know it is the fastest laser. 250 Hertz is really good for PRK or surface treatments. It's very gentle on the surface and it avoids overheating of the corneal surface, thus translating into less corneal haze post-operatively. I was also going through literature especially by people from Schwind. They have published that they have a surface algorithm which reduces post-op haze. I'm very happy to share. I saw their results and saw mine, very comparable results. So Zeiss has already been there. What Schwind is learning right now, that is what I feel. The biggest thing about webinars is that they make you read up a lot. So I read a lot of peer-reviewed articles. So our first post-op day results confirm exactly with what Schwind is claiming, and they are still refining their technologies. So 5 years back, we were still there where Schwind is trying to reach now. Also, Zeiss has a AAA advanced ablation algorithm. This combines and further improves 2 algorithms which were used in the MEL 80, which was the tissue saving algorithm and the aberration saving advanced algorithm, ASA and TSA, and further improves it so that one profile will fit all ablation patterns. It has a complete treatment range. There are absolutely no nomograms which have been given by Zeiss. Since I saw Alcon machines, I asked Zeiss for a nomogram because all of them had nomograms pasted on them. I have seen Alcon machines in action even at Shankar Netralaya. So I was happy to learn that there are no nomograms and there are no adjustments needed, and was pleasantly surprised with the results. So it maintains the algorithm maintains asphericity along with combining less tissue consumption. That is a great boon, I guess. Also the centration, eye tracking, and since we all know that angle kappa is really important, it is the angle between the pupillary axis, that means center of the pupil where your eye tracker will be, and the visual axis where the patient focuses on the green fixation light in the laser. Normally in myopic treatments, it will not really play a big role, but in hyperopic patients, the visual axis is slightly nasal, and that is where it can play a big role, in achieving good corrections. So this is just a schematic to show you center of the pupil, that is where the eye tracker will come, and visual axis, that is where the patient will fixate. So this is what the patient sees when he lies down from, under the machine. And this is what the surgeon sees, the LED rose, the green fixation light. And you can see in in one particular patient, this is just an example. This is the pupillary diameter. This is the green fixation light where the patient is fixating. So this is the visual axis. And you can see this red light here. So this is the aiming beam, this is showing you center of the pupil. So you can see the difference. Now, if you treat here, the visual axis is off center here. So in this particular patient, you'll have to make adjustments. Otherwise, you will have an unhappy patient and probably a less correction as well. So we go to the eye tracker. This machine gives you that opportunity to do that. And we are able to move the eye tracker to coincide with the visual axis of the patient. This is just a schematic to show you. See how we are moving the eye tracker and coinciding with the visual axis. So that is where you will get the best results if we treat like this. This machine gives you an opportunity to do that, and I think that's very important to do, especially in patients who have a disparity in that. Another thing which is really important is cyclotorsion. If you treat a lot of high cylinders, of course it is more important, more than 1.5 or 2 diopter cylinders if you are treating. There have been various studies which I have seen. So mean cyclotorsion in patients is 3.3 to 2.5. Even while using the Varion and the Callisto, I have seen around 5 to 6 degrees cyclotorsion, which is quite common during cataract surgery as well. So this matches with this data. And this cyclotorsion happens when the patient lies down. When you're sitting and when you lie down, there is torsion of the visual axis that can hamper your corrections. Say if you have a 5 diopter correction, even a 4 degree cyclotorsion can give you a surprise of more than close to a diopter. So that is not really acceptable. So how do we tackle this? So in this machine, there are two options. One is manual marking with the bubble marker like you do in toric lenses. You do that, and then when the patient is lying down, you press the 0 line here. It is there in the software. The 0 line will project a red horizontal line all to the patient's eye. This we are marking manually. You can even do it on a slit lamp, or you can do a bubble marker. That's up to you. This line can be used to align the corneal marks by slightly adjusting or rotating the patient's head position. And when you do that and proceed with your treatment, the results are really great. It makes a difference, especially in higher cylinders. And I have found in a few patients surprises. If I wouldn't have marked, the cyclotorsion would have really taken away the result which I really wanted. There is another feature called as Oculine by Zeiss. That also you can use, but for that you need an Atlas topographer and another analyzer to capture the image, send it to the machine, and then the machine automatically, makes those adjustments. But if you don't want to invest extra on that, there is good enough accuracy in manual marking, which we have seen by various articles, which say that manual limbal markings and iris registration software are equally effective and safe in preventing any surprises. This we have even seen in cataract surgery, that either for toric lenses, that you either put it manually with manual marks or you do it through Varian and Callisto. The difference is very little for it to be clinically significant. Another great thing which this laser incorporates is the ability to upgrade to PRESBYOND, which is treatment for presbyopic people, which is something new, and it makes them enjoy benefits for at least non-cataractous patients, which are most of them in their 40s, to enjoy spectacle-free vision. It works on the principle of laser blended vision, so that includes increasing the depth of focus by the laser by controlled induction of spherical aberration. They are all proprietary softwares to do that, and it creates a micro monovision in which the dominant eye is targeted for distance correction or emetropia, and the non-dominant eye is targeted for myopia of approximately 1.5 diopter sphere. This is just a small diagram to show you young people are able to see everything very clearly. We know that presbyopes, from 3 meters onward, they are able, by differing by the age, they are not able to see. With EDOF lenses, of course, you are able to take it to intermediate level, but again, near and less than half a meter, they are very unhappy. In monovision, we can take care partly, but there is always a gap between intermediate and distance. This particular gap is difficult to fill, so they also sometimes end up wearing glasses. And this is the blended monovision, which the PRESBYOND creates. This is the blend zone. This is by induction of spherical aberrations that this machine blends, and you have uninterrupted vision from distance to right there at the near. And Dr. Sri Ganesh is a living example of a refractive surgeon himself undergoing PRESBYOND LASIK correction, and he is totally spectacle free and extremely happy. He has got it done by Dr. Dan Ranstein many years ago, and he is proof of concept for this particular technology working and working very well. Just wanted to share our experience and results with the MEL 90. So I did a retrospective analysis. Of course, the knowledge about the webinar from Zeiss was a little short notice, so we were able to take out only part of the records. So that shows that we had done 305 patients, 610 eyes. We are closing to around 800-850 eyes right now. 54% of the patients were male, 46% females. Mean age was 22 years. And patients were 98% satisfied. The major cause for dissatisfaction was mainly prolonged use of medicines in 2% of the patients, especially, and I would say 99.9% in those patients who underwent PRK, because PRK, there is a lot of epithelial modeling which happens, and you have to continue medicines, restart medicines, so it's a little longer this thing, so patients sometimes don't like that. That was the main reason for dissatisfaction when we studied that. Also, the procedure type, we did around 35% PRKs and 65% SBK LASIK. From the day one, I've been doing sub-Bowman keratomelusis, and we'll come to that later. I did corrections from as small as -0.5 to 11 diopters, with as small as +0.5 to +5 diopter in hyperopic range. Cylinders were corrected from 0.25 to 5 diopters. The mean pre-op sphere corrections, cylindrical corrections, and mean ablation depth is shown here. And we were really happy and surprised with the results. We had 98% of the total patients who achieved uncorrected visual acuity of 6/6. This matches very closely with Dr. Dan Reinstein's data, which was published in Journal of Refractive Surgery in 2015. And nearly 99% of the LASIK patients achieved UCVA of 6/6, and 96% for PRK, which is absolutely understood, because PRK, there is definitely more healing and more remodeling, and sometimes it can be unpredictable, though 96% is great success. And I think it overshoots most of the machines available in the market and publications which are there. Also, I wanted to share, this was also recommended by Zeiss. So MEL 90, I've combined it with Moria SBK 1 use plus microkeratome, and I think it does a phenomenal job in giving you comfort in making 90 micron planar flaps, which even the femtolasic cannot better. Have made flaps and keratometries ranging from 40 to 47. And certain people had thoughts that maybe, you know, making a 90 micron flap in a 600 micron cornea will not allow it to stick, and, you know, there will be problems. I have not, apart from one early flap dislodgement, which was immediately within 1 hour of LASIK, I have not had any dislodgements. I have not had any macro striae, you know, very low complication rates. It has a disposable head with the blade, and I dispose it off after every patient. We do not reuse it, do not re-sterilize it. That eliminates the risk and cost of re-sterilization. It has very good flap edges. There have been no cases of DLK and no epithelial ingrowths in these 3 years. Visually insignificant microstriae are definitely commonly observed, especially more in the left eye, probably because I am a right-handed person. So when you are ironing out the flap, those things can be there, but none of them are visually significant. They've never affected vision. They are microstriae. We've had flap related complications, most of them in the first year, of course, can be attributable to a learning curve. 2 incomplete flaps, out of which one I did after 3 months. We aborted the procedure. After 3 months, I did a trans PRK and simple PRK with alcohol debridement in the other. We had 2 free caps. One was a marked free cap. So we went ahead with the ablation and put that cap back. Patient was 6/6, of course, with the contact lens on. And the second free cap, it was an unmarked, unluckily, unmarked free cap. But to my, you know, good luck, the patient was an amblyope. So, you know, he did not complain, although he was 6/9 parts, he didn't complain much. And we had already told him guarded visual prognosis. So lucky for us in that. But I would definitely recommend marking corneas. So coming to the take-home message, we must invest wisely, especially in post-COVID scenarios where everybody is struggling with finances. You have to be extremely careful in where you invest your money. According to me, and from what market analysis I have done, Zeiss has the most comprehensive and upgradable refractive platform as of today. And even in SMILE, although a lot of companies are coming in with SMILE alternatives, but I think Zeiss has a huge experience in SMILE, and I don't think it'll be a long time before all of them catch up. Modern day microkeratomes like the Moria are giving femto a run for their money. I never felt the need or advantage to upgrade to a femto LASIK. You can see my complications, you can see the numbers. You will have to price your refractive procedures in these times attractively to achieve viability. And excellent results and commitment to quality alone triumphs in the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chekitan Singh. It was an excellent presentation and it was really good and informative for all of us. Now we have a few questions from the audience. So I would like to ask you a few questions.
Please.
1 second. Like you said that you have some experience with other lasers. So when you compare the other laser machines, how is the experience like dealing, like how easiness or how patient, how doctor friendly this laser is in comparison to the others? Like and how is the learning curve?
Yeah, I think, see, the learning curve, it's all about how much you've been exposed before. But this is a very patient-friendly laser. My staff, you know, everything is a touch screen. And from the day one we started operating the touch screen, we had the Zeiss people to help us with that. and it was very easy to use. Everything is graphic oriented, everything is pictographic, and you can go into the menus, fill in the data. If you overshoot your treatment limits, the machine gives you a warning. So it's very easy to use. So learning curve is not much, but of course you have to be focused, you have to read about it, you have to observe people, you have to take really active interest, because refractive is not something which is small. So if you are going into it, you better be prepared to give it your 100%. Otherwise it is difficult to practice and get good results.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
machine is extremely easy to handle, much more friendly than other machines. I've even seen the EX500. You have to enter the nomograms, you have to change things for every patient, so that is where chances of error and wrong entries are there. So I think that eliminates that completely.
So basically, just to sum up that, this machine generally you don't even also use nomogram, right? So you never
Yes.
need to use any specific nomogram for treatments.
I have never used any nomogram. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now coming to a PRK. So how is your experience? Like we are having a 250 hertz for this PRK. So do you see
Yes.
that this is much friendlier than having a more faster laser competition?
See, definitely, I think, because another thing is that if the lasers sometimes are very fast, like Schwind has come up with a 750 hertz laser. So, I don't think this race in hertz really, like they might come up with 1000 hertz. So there is a particular frequency and repetition rate on the cornea. So, if on the cornea, even if you have a very high frequency, you might have to switch off ablation in between. You might have to do frequency modeling,
Yeah.
but ICE doesn't do that. It has a proprietary non-random distribution of spots. So because of that, the laser is on continuously in 500 hertz. That is why it is one of the fastest lasers. That is also I read in articles. And the beam profile is such that Zeiss gives you the most smooth corneas. It has been compared to Nidec, it has been compared to Alcon, and even to Bausch and Lomb. So I went through literature and even through AMO on PMMA when they did the comparison. The most smooth PMMA plates or corrections were done by the Zeiss, and that was MEL 70. That is what,
Okay.
and this is MEL 90. So things
Yeah.
have only improved. And
Yep.
PRK, I think definitely, first I mostly use alcohol. So I have a very good smooth stromal bed when I start. And I have, after that I use mitomycin C and then put in a bandage contact lens. And first day results, very much comparable to competition. Even these newer machines like the Schwind, which has that surface tech and all those technologies to give you that vision, we already have it with the normal way we do LASIK, so PRK. So I didn't find anything extra in the literature to support that any of these technologies are really adding clinical relevance to the results. It can be just a gimmick to come out with certain things to lure buyers, but in terms of results, I have not really seen any difference when I compare my results with any of the other published data.
Yeah. No, that sounds really great. Now, just moving ahead, how is the retreatment like ratio? Like, what are the percentage of the treatment you need to retreat over the
See,
period of time?
this thing about our data is that the follow-up is not more than 6 months. So,
Okay.
I will be going into it since we have been into 3 years now. I'll take out all the files, call all the patients back, and we'll see what is this thing. But we keep reviewing our patients. Even the old patients, which we did 1.5 years back, are reviewing with us. So usually I have seen that 6x6 might go to 6x6 parts in between, but we have not really seen those gross recurrences like a 612, 618. So we have not really seen that. So I have not touched up a single patient out of these nearly 800, 850 that we have done, number of eyes which we have done till now. Not a single retreatment till now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. There's one more question. What optical zones are you using if you're doing trans? Do you have any experience with the trans PRK with MEL 90?
Yes, I'm doing trans PRK, but for that we have to go into PTK mode. So
Yeah.
that is the way to do it. PTK, and we keep 57 micron as the thickness for removal of the epithelium. It's very good. Like the incomplete flaps I had in 2 patients. You know, so in one I did a trans PRK, and in one I did a alcohol based removal. So the results were pretty equal in both. So I don't think one has advantage over the other. If you are scared that your flap will come off when you are doing the epithelial debridement with alcohol, then probably you can go trans PRK. So trans PRK would have an advantage in incomplete flaps or a free cap or something like that. But otherwise, in terms of, I think even with alcohol, the quality of the bed which you get after removal of the epithelium is extremely good. So I don't think, you know, that has any great big advantage.
Yeah. And what optical zone do you keep for that?
For LASIK, I'm keeping 6 mm.
And for trans PRK?
It is similar.
Similar. Yeah. Okay. There's one more question. What about the Q value adjustment done in Alcon machine? Is it done in Zeiss too?
No, no, we are not doing any adjustments, not following, you know, at least my results, what I have shown you are all with a simple good refraction, and just we use Pentacam to rule out, we don't take any risky cases, you know, we do the ones which are really safe, and those ones which are borderline, we only do PRK, no matter, you know, patient sometimes doesn't feel very good after a PRK initially. But when we tell them that this is safer and this is better for you, then they understand most of the times.
No, thank
and
you.
we don't over promise, you know, we tell them that there is a risk of 5% under corrections, over corrections, all those things can happen. So patients are prepared. We have not had any complaints.
So basically, you prepare the patients from the initial consultation when they are going for this laser vision correction.
Yes, I do the counseling myself. Yeah, I don't leave it to anybody, any optometrist or anybody.
That's really great. Now, from looking from the perspective of a impact on your practice, so does it have any? How does it help you to grow your practice by having excimer laser into your practice?
See, I think it is one thing in our practice. I would say our practice was reasonably doing very well even before LASIK. You know, but LASIK adds another dimension to it, that you know, you have one more thing to offer to kind of complete the services which are available. And I think these are younger patients. Once they connect to you, and if they are happy with your results, they remain connected with you, and they can bring in their you know, parents for surgeries, and that way definitely it can help you grow as a center. But then you have to see how much, I mean, for LASIK, you have to really do some research before you invest into it. What number of patients are coming, how much return of investment you will get, what machine you are buying, what is the cost. You cannot just go ahead and just pick up a machine which is the most costly and then start doing it, because you have to really match your ROI if you have to stay afloat, especially in the post-COVID scenario. So you have to be smart in your investment, smart for good technologies which give you good results.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Dr. Singh. I think it was an amazing discussion with you, and then now I think it's a time for us to move to a second presentation. So
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Yeah.